Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar on the intersection of cash management, cash application, and deductions. This is Brian from Strategic Treasurer, and we're pleased you could join us as we consider how pairing cash application and deduction solutions can enhance cash management. Our speakers for today are Chaz Narwich, Principal for Invoice to Cash at Esker, and Craig Jeffrey, Founder and Managing Partner of Strategic Treasurer. Welcome, Chaz and Craig, and I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Off to a good start with Chaz. I'm so glad to be doing this with you, Chaz, and thanks everyone for joining this webinar, spending some of your time. I know there's a lot to do, and we have a lot to cover today, so thanks for doing that. Let's get into our agenda today. So our topics of discussion are laid out in very summarized form. We've got challenges. We'll talk about issues about deductions, errors, visibility or lack of visibility, and some of the other elements that create challenges for cash application deductions that impact receivables, but also impact the rest of the organization. Then we'll look at automation and integration. So this is everything from assignment to application, to reconciliation and deduction management. How can we automate and better integrate the data that goes into cash application of the whole receivables process? Then we'll look at choosing a solution. And when we think about choosing a solution, what are the key elements that should be considered? This is crucial. Integration is one of these. And the other aspect that we'll talk about is the world of the cash conversion cycle. So from AP and AR and treasury, all of those fit into the cash conversion cycle, and they're related. And a negative impact in one area has a reverberating impact on the other. So if you're in treasury, you need to care about AR. If you're in AP, you need to care about both AR and treasury. So there's this interaction in the cash conversion cycle. And so when you're choosing a solution, we'll talk through some of those elements of making sure you're looking at a full-bodied or a comprehensive look at what goes on. And then finally, Chaz and I will cover some key takeaways. We'll look and summarize some of the information and power of using artificial intelligence. We'll also examine corporate activities, automation, as well as executing, making sure all you plan to and all you implement becomes a reality. So that's our agenda. And Chaz and I have a lot to cover. I'm looking forward to this. So Chaz, maybe you could talk us through some of the challenges. I mean, your role at Esker as an advisor will help touch on a lot of these, but as everyone looks at it, there's cash application and deduction, right? There's the happy path. There's never any problems. And then there's the reality that there's deductions, there's errors. Maybe you could talk us through and set the stage for what are the challenges on the cash application side of the house.
Yeah, for sure, Craig. Yeah, thanks for laying that out there, and super excited to be with everyone today. And as you said, Craig, really understanding the relationship between cash application, deductions, and treasury, and how that all fits together. It's really interesting to look at some of the challenges that large organizations, mid-sized organizations, and small organizations are all facing these challenges today in cash application and deductions. And a lot of the time when companies are getting paid, the B2B world has lagged very far behind how B2C interactions happen and transactions happen. So with cash application, there's still a lot of checks coming to organizations today. And a lot of the time when a check comes in or an electronic payment comes into a company, they're receiving this payment, they don't match it correctly to the open accounts receivable, the open invoices that they have. So there's a lot of opportunity for errors if you're just doing this manually inside of an ERP system where payment comes in, maybe it's mismatched to the invoice, maybe it's incorrectly matched to a remittance. There's a lot of opportunity for errors within that process. And as we'll talk about in the future, in this presentation, we'll talk a little bit about how that affects all different teams and all different processes when it comes to the cash conversion cycle. So, I mean, big challenge is the errors. It's a human error. So there's a lot of times when Most of the time humans are processing these. There's some opportunity for AI there, but there's going to be human error, and that affects a lot of other parts of the order to cash process. And the second is lack of visibility. So as I was saying before, when payments are coming into organizations, sometimes checks are going to a lockbox, so you don't have visibility there when it was received, and there's not a lot of understanding of where that payment is in the process. So if you're looking at it from a managerial perspective or from a top level finance perspective, not seeing where a payment is, if it's a large payment, and not knowing when it was applied or when it will be applied, or if there was a short payment on it, that affects a lot of planning downstream, because you don't know, is this payment going to be applied at this date? Are we going to be able to recognize this payment when it comes in? Because you already sold the product, the payment's already been made, but it's really about that timing of when you're going to see it and understanding when you can use that money to perhaps make other investments. So the lack of visibility, because a lot of companies are, when it comes to cash application, they're just doing it in their ERP system. It's in an individual, maybe there's individual emails going back and forth by analysts. There's not a lot of visibility into the process if you're doing it in a manual way right now. And then that relates to high DSO and unapplied cash. So obviously, if you're not applying that cash and recognizing it, then the day sales outstanding goes up, and that metric's really important, because especially with inflation and the way that interest rates are heading right now, being able to collect money and recognize it quicker so you can do other things with it, it's really important. So not having an efficient cash application process really affects that. And then it affects the efficiency of credit and collections. So if I'm an organization, I'll just give an example. I have a building materials client, a client in the building materials industry that's down in Texas, and they weren't automating any of these processes. So they were manual for all different areas of order to cash. And the deductions or the cash application process, because they weren't applying accurately and efficiently, a lot of the time that would result on order blocks where they wouldn't allow customers to order more products. So that's how it affects credit. And on the collection side, it's the same thing. If you don't have accurate cash application, you can't accurately talk to your customer and collect from them. And then for deductions, three pretty easy to understand challenges when it comes to this. Are time consuming. So the effort that goes into researching deductions, why the short pay was taken. There's a lot of time that goes into that. The approval process when it comes to approving short pays and claims, they're complex. As I was saying before, there's multiple reasons why customers will take deductions, why they won't pay the entire invoice. And there could be multiple reasons that they're not doing it. So there's a complexity to that. And then costly, obviously, if you have a company that has a lot of write-offs and just says, hey, we're not going to collect this because it's been this amount of time, or maybe they inaccurately are going to write a short payoff, that's costly, because you sold the product, you're just not getting the money for that product. That's going to affect the margins. So just a few challenges. I probably will touch on each of these as we go throughout the presentation. But those are the main ones that I'm seeing in the market as far as the companies that I advise.
Chaz, that was really good. I think some of the multiple examples where if there's a problem, there's a deduction, there's some kind of defect or error that occurs, which has this reverberating impact. And so handling deductions properly is, we're preventing them is ideal, but handling them most properly is crucial.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you look at it and you have visibility on the deduction, Craig, that's something where, as you said just now, that's the biggest thing, is if you can invoice properly and understand why companies are taking deductions and being able to fix that problem because of the visibility, that's something, like you said, it's better just to prevent that from happening completely in the beginning.
All right, that brings us to our first poll question. This is a select all that apply should appear. There'll be some instructions in the chat box on how to see it if you can't see it. What are the biggest challenges? So this is, which of the following aspects of cash management are the biggest challenge for your organization? So we're taking that view across the cash conversion cycle: timely cash application, cash forecasting accuracy, managing deductions and disputes, reducing manual processes, other, or ensure. You can select, you can select all of them. I mean, obviously you wouldn't select other or ensure if you selected the first four, but we'll leave that up to your wisdom as you go ahead and make those selections. After you fill those in, hit submit. And I would invite everybody in the chat box, once you've submitted that, go ahead and follow Esker and Strategic Treasurer on LinkedIn. If you're not already doing so, go ahead and just click it and select and follow. And that's a good way to stay connected with Esker and with Strategic Treasurer. And it makes our marketing team happy. Makes me happy too. All right, Chaz, number one by a little bit was reducing manual processes. Cash forecasting is slightly behind. And then a pretty big drop to timely cash app and managing deductions and disputes. Any initial thoughts on these responses?
Yeah, I think that people that are attending this meeting, they really see the value in automating low value tasks. I guess you could say they're reducing the manual processes. If you have people that are taking data and keying it into an ERP system manually, there's an opportunity to automate that with all the technology that we have today. So I think I can see that the 61% reducing manual processes is as easy as saying, hey, why don't we have a system to take data, read it, extract it, match it. There's technology today. The AI boom is here. That doesn't surprise me, Craig. I think that's probably the one that I would see as the number one. And the cash forecasting accuracy, that might surprise me a little bit, but at the same time, this is a strategic treasurer webinar. There's some treasurers on here, people in that area, and that's really important to them, understanding where their cash is in the process and being able to leverage information to make great decisions and successful decisions on where to spend and where to allocate that cash in the future. So I guess a little bit surprised, but because of the nature of the webinar, maybe not as much.
Excellent. Thanks for those comments. And then for everybody who wants to see the poll results, the summarized poll results that comes out embedded with the presentation deck, if you would go ahead and type the word Esker in the chat box. If you type the word poll, it's fine too. And that will give Brian something else to do while he's running the back end of the webinar. And it should be spelled so that you can read it, right? It needs to be close. So at least three of the letters need to match. That would be awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And it's good to not be on mute when I'm supposed to be talking. So this is this is good. It's like, how many people could read my lips on the beginning? I was really going there. All right, so cash application automation, we oftentimes want to make processes streamline, Chaz. How should we think about how cash application works? I know there's assignment to a particular customer, there's applying it to individual invoices, and there's quite a bit more to it than some people are aware of if they're not in a cash application area. Can you talk us through how this works?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we talked a little bit about the challenges. So we know how a manual process works when it comes to cash application, as far as taking data, matching it, applying it inside of an ERP system. And how an automated system would work is, number one, the biggest bang that you're going to get from an automated system, biggest ROI component, I guess you could say, if you were to invest in an automation solution, is the data extraction component. And what does that mean? That means you're getting data from a bank lockbox. You're getting data that has your checks information in it, remittance information in it. And then you're also having electronic payment information coming over, along with perhaps emailed remittances of what you're paying. So when you as a company are receiving that, having the ability to extract data from that, really that's where the manual processes can be replaced with technology. And I think that that's the really big area where having accurate extraction off of those pieces of information, that's the first step. And then everything flows down from there. The second is the payment allocation. So obviously, this is a manual process as well, typically for companies where they have taking a payment, taking a check, taking an electronic payment, and matching it to the remittance and matching it to the open accounts receivable, matching it to the open invoices, essentially. So there's data components and fields on both of these pieces of information that can be read, extracted, and then allocated and matched to each other. So those two pieces, that's a big area where you're going to see improvement if you were to automate this with a technology, with a software system. And then suggestions and exceptions management. So as I was saying before, everybody's talking about AI, being able to have your team leverage AI, leverage machine learning specifically for when they're making these allocated payments, to have suggestions and exceptions be managed very easily. So if there's something where a payment doesn't match certain invoices, being able to manage that easily, and also have a system that learns over time and makes suggestions and is able to remember some of the data, remember some of what that AR analyst is doing within the system. And then obviously suggestions saves time as well. So payment reconciliation relates to what I was saying when it comes to the payment allocation, as far as reconciling what did this customer pay, which invoices did they pay, where's the remittance, and being able to integrate that data back into an ERP system. And then the visibility component. So the monitoring and analysis of this whole process, being able to have dashboards to say, oh, this is the number of payments that need to be allocated today. These are the number of the payments that were allocated. This is the number of the payments that were set aside to be allocated later. So you can have that full visibility along with the dollar amount. So everybody on this call, a lot of money people on this call, they want to know how much money's coming in. They want to know how much money's been applied, and having the analysis of a dashboard that shows where all that information is in the process, and being able to monitor it, that's important, as well as being able to monitor what your team is doing. So having the visibility from an individual perspective of, okay, this is my team. I have someone on my team that is doing the bulk of the work as far as applying cash. They stayed till 8 p.m. tonight. Hey, maybe we look at them and we say, okay, you're working this hard, maybe get a bonus, or maybe try and free up some of their time and make the workload a little more balanced. The monitoring of the individuals, that's something that can happen with an automated process when it comes to cash application. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot more that companies could see as far as that data and what you can monitor within an automated system, but we'll stop there for now.
Yeah, just a follow-up question for you, Chaz, on the suggestions and exception management. If you have a system that matches things exactly, right, it should go there. People don't have to look at it, right? The invoice number, amount match, and it wipes off. If it's unknown, the value of a suggestions is it this, that instead of having a blank sheet of paper where the person has to figure everything out, it at least starts with, here's what we think makes sense, and then the person can more quickly say yes or no, I'm going to make this adjustment. And is that the core of that value?
Absolutely, Craig. I think you got it spot on.
How, and I'm putting in the spot, how much more beneficial is that in terms of time or some other measurement? I know it makes sense. I just don't know if I don't have a measurement on that I can put in my head.
Yeah, no, that's a great, really excellent question. And I think the best anecdote I can give, or the best example I can give for that, is that if a company has a customer who's paying, maybe they say they pay $1 million, send $1 million payment, and maybe that $1 million payment's for 800 different invoices. If perhaps that the match isn't completely $1 million. It says, okay, hey, we have these are the invoices we think the suggestion gives of these are the invoices we think this payment is for, where if you were to do that manually and you were going through adding up all those different invoices to say, okay, this is what I think it equals. If there's no remittance, I guess we're just talking about that. They're not even telling you what they're paying. The suggestions feature, it's really that automation piece, what it can do is say, okay, these are the invoices we think that this payment's paying. And then from there, the validation of doing it, I mean, I would say that saves 50% of the time because you don't have to do that manually as an analyst to calculate all those invoices up and just try to do that guesswork where you're not really sure. Or sometimes you have to, some companies wait for the remittance every time. So I think that you got it spot on. As far as that manual effort, it's just something that you have someone that would take a lot of time to do that. Why not have a machine do it? Why not have a technology do it to make those suggestions and then come out with an accurate way of applying that cash?
Excellent. Thanks, Chaz. All right. So we are into our second poll question, and this is a select one. How does your organization currently handle deductions management? It's fully automated, all the way down to no formal process, or unsure. So we've got partially automated with some manual intervention, primarily manual, outsourced to a third party, someone else is doing it. There's no formal process, or we're unsure. Give everybody a moment to answer those. Okay, so if you're unable to see the poll, if you slide up in the chat box, you might be able to see some of the instructions, Alt-Tab or some other ways of exposing that. If you've been unable to see any poll, it might be blocked by your IT group. So please take a look in the chat box. Brian just posted some of the ways to get that. So thank you. We'll give everybody just a little bit more time for those people that weren't able to see this poll. Hopefully they can find it and then answer. I guess also in the chat box, if you would like to see the poll results, we were 18 shy. And since I only said 100, and let's just say now we're going to need 28 more to share those. That's me being mean, right? 28 more Eskers in the chat box. And then the results of the poll, all the polls that we do, we'll include those in the deck. It's just a fun way for us. It's not mean. If maybe it is mean, I don't know, but just love to see that engagement. I mean, I don't know about you, Chaz, but I really like seeing, everybody who's on, what's the audience like? How far along are they in certain areas? I find that real-time data very, very instructive.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's good to know exactly, because we're kind of coming in here not knowing who the attendees are. So it's interesting to see where we can focus this and what we can talk about more, as far as every company's different in their journey when it comes to automation. And it's interesting to know that information a little bit deeper.
It's great. We have enough askers in the chat box. Everybody will get the poll question. I won't even have to bring that up in the third poll question. This is interesting, handling deductions. The fully automated is 1 out of 11 or so. And then we only 2% are outsourcing it. No formal process, 9%. Unsure, pretty big numbers there. Primarily manual, partially automated with some manual intervention, 18 and 25%. I know this is good for Esker generally to know that there's quite a few people that could use that type of help. Any other thoughts on, any comments on handling deductions?
Yeah, no, I think that unsure, it's interesting to see that is number one. Obviously, this process can be, it just depends on the department. I think a lot of people here in the finance side, This could be a customer service function, supply chain. It affects a lot of different departments. So I'm not surprised that there's a lot of unsure. And then I think partially automated with some manual intervention. I'd be interested to hear. I know that 56 people looks like that said that. Interested to hear what that means as far as partially automated, because I'm thinking maybe they have a trade promotion system or something along that lines. But I'm sure that what we're going to talk about probably is significant for them as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks for those comments. Thanks for responding to the poll questions so far. We're going to keep moving along. Now, as we move to deduction management, again, I'm going to lean on you, Chaz, for this one. Is like, how does it work? And we've got a couple titles here: AI driven, all the way down to ERP integration. Right? We want to make the process clean, efficient, and integrated. Maybe you could take us through your thinking here.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first one, AI driven short payment matching. So where it all starts is when you get a short payment in cash application, or perhaps a claim before a payment comes over that needs to be processed, and being able to leverage AI to match those short payments to the proper data. That's really important. Using AI extraction and matching engines. I think that's the low-hanging fruit, like I was saying before, as far as the extraction and matching technology. And then dashboard and analytics, being able to measure certain metrics, Craig, like days deductions outstanding. I know that's something where a lot of companies measure that as far as how outstanding the number of days that the deduction hasn't been resolved. So having the visibility into that, as I was saying before, very similar to cash application. A lot of companies aren't tracking these. So having that view on that is really important. Also, to be able to resolve effectively those deductions and to see what type of deductions that you're getting. Because as you said before, there could be trade promotions, withholding of tax. There could be issues with the shipment as far as the volume or the number of products that are being delivered. So I think that that's a huge part of this, is the dashboard analytics aspect. Investigation workflow. So I think you mentioned at the beginning of this call, obviously there's a AP, AR, treasury, they're all part of the cash conversion cycle. How a lot of companies automate AP, and they have investigation workflows and approval workflows within that. It's very similar on the deduction side as far as approval of the deduction, investigation. It can go from one department to the other, and that really helps with the interdepartmental communication, this workflow piece when it comes to an automated solution. And then ERP integration. Having the ERP for a lot of companies, for all companies, is the source of truth. So integration and posting of claims information and creating credit notes and adjusting the general ledger within the ERP is very important, because if you're going to have an automation solution, there is going to be a lot of the process is going to work in there, but the end data, the source of truth data needs to reside in that ERP. So having ERP integration is pretty crucial for any type of automation project that you're going down, whether it be deductions or cash application.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think the other piece too, and for those who are listening in on the conversation, is I asked Chaz to come up with a couple case studies. So there's a lot of theory, there's a lot of descriptions. I always find it helpful. I think most people find it helpful to see use cases and what did that mean for those organizations. So we'll jump to the first case study. This is about automated cash app. Can you take us through what were the key elements of this, particularly in terms of how we can all learn from it?
Yep. So this is a steel manufacturer, and they were getting, I would say, at least 20,000 payments inbound per month. So they had a very large AR team that was manually processing these payments, matching them, applying them in the ERP. And one of the biggest issues was the end of month. Everybody was going crazy at the end of the month because they had to apply all these payments. The higher ups were saying, hey, we need to make sure we're recognizing this revenue, applying the payments properly. And it really was a stressful time at this company. And it was something where at the end of the month, a lot of people dreaded it. A lot of people would have to work over the weekend, would have to stay after work and sacrifice the time with their family, sacrifice the time doing the things, not that they don't like work, but doing the things that they want to do. So implementing an automated solution, they were able to, this steel company was able to reduce that processing time at the end of the month by 40%. So if you say you have 20 people staying at the end of the month overtime, then maybe only half that needs to stay at the end of the month, and maybe you can cycle through that and have a better work-life balance for a lot of the organization. So work-life balance is a big part of this project, and that end-of-month processing time really contributes to that. And then sped up remittance processing time by 95%. These go hand in hand. And as I said before, the number one area for, I guess, if you were to invest in an automated solution, the biggest bang for your buck is that extraction of the remittance information. So sped up remittance processing time by 95%. Some of these lines can just be extracted easily by something that can machine learn the data and easily extract it. So they fall hand in hand, these two. And then optimize downstream and upstream processes such as credit and collections. As I was saying before, if you can properly apply the cash, you can have better relationships with your customers where maybe you are getting cash in the door quicker from them, they're paying on time. Maybe you want to extend credit to them and make more money for the business. So being able to talk to sales and say, hey, maybe we extend credit for this company. That's what happened here. So they were able to optimize downstream processes, upstream processes to both get better collaboration with customers and then also to monetize that, because everybody's trying to make money. We're in the this company was trying to do that, and it really enabled them to do that. And then decrease unallocated payments by 20 to 30%. These numbers all interrelate to each other. So there's unallocated payments that they wanted to reduce that number, and it was on their books. They had measurements surrounding it. So they were able to find, hey, where do we apply those payments? Where do they need to be applied to? And they were able to get to those because it was a labor issue as well, as far as getting to those with someone who can apply those payments if they're unallocated.
The unallocated payments, I like to use the word defects, right? Unallocated payments are a defect that have to be resolved, and defects, unallocated payments, disproportionately affect the level of work that needs to be done to resolve them, and then have a disproportional impact on the cash flow. So this is a great case study.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, is that there needs to be focus on there, and it takes away from other tasks as well. So if you can enable technology to help with that, why not?
Okay, we have a couple questions in the Q&A box. So I'll take the first one. Feel free to jump on that. If you want to look at the second one, that's fine too. It says, with the further adoption of CTX, that's corporate trade exchange and digital payments. So corporate trade exchange is an ACH. In that ACH, you can include remittance information, like unlimited information. You could do the 800 invoices that Chaz gave an example. With the further adoption of CTX and digital payments, that the assumption is that carry that information, do you expect companies to increase or decrease their reliance on email remittance or cash application? I would say two things. I wouldn't answer it as directly as it's asked. I would say that with the further adoption of those things, there will be greater benefits of being able to rely on the remittance information that's included. Rich information helps the process. But I would also say on the increase or decrease reliance on email remittance for a cash application, people should be doing that because there will be many who send it separately and it needs to be reassociated. So it's a hard question, right? The more that's coming through digitally, the less you have to rely on it. But more companies are going to rely on it because more of them will be able to take in email remittance as many options. So that's I guess that's a way of saying, yeah, both, but here's some color for that. Do you want to take the second question in there?
For sure. So from your experience, are companies trying to move away from email remittance to help streamline processes and improve automation? or is it becoming more common to leverage email remittance? That's a good question. I think that in my experience, companies aren't trying to move away from email remittances. Obviously, I'm working with companies that have this process automated or looking to automate that. And with the email remittance, there's information in there that can be extracted and matched. So in my opinion, or in my experience, that's not happening as much. And I think that companies are just leveraging those remittances to extract off them and match them. So I guess it's the latter, more common to leverage the email remittance if you're using an automated solution. That's something where that can help with the matching accuracy, the allocation accuracy, and yeah, so I would say it's probably the latter there.
Let me ask perhaps a question behind that question is, would you see it as companies they prefer to get the payment and the remittance information together as opposed to separate streams?
That's a good, yeah, I think I get what you're saying there. Yeah, I would say they prefer to get it together in that case, because that'll make it even more automated and make the process even better data, and it's all together there.
Excellent. Thanks for the questions. Great answer, Chaz. This brings us to our final poll question slide. This is select one of those improvements to cash application and deductions. Which of the following improvements would be most valuable to your cash application and deduction process? So we go from reduced manual efforts and errors all the way down to other or insured. We have enough comments in the chat box. We're going to put up the follow Esker and Strategic Treasurer there too, but go ahead and select your answer and submit it. No need to type Esker again, unless you really want to, because they'll send
We'll take it.
So it has follow Esker on LinkedIn, follow Strategic Treasurer on LinkedIn. Once you've submitted it, if you haven't done that, feel free to do so. If this is the first time you followed Esker or Strategic Treasurer, go ahead and write that, the LinkedIn following. Go ahead and write that on there. If we get a certain number of people, that'll be pleasing. So awesome. There you go. All right, as soon as we're ready for the answers, and they're coming up. Nice. This looks like it's almost exactly in order. Reduced manual efforts and errors, improved integration, faster application of incoming payments. We are satisfied with our current process, 9%. Excellent. And then better visibility into deductions and disputes, 7%. And then 17% are other or insure. We'll just leave those the way they are. We've got some more stuff to cover. This is really good information. We'll include that and send it out. And then we're going to show you how we can change. Chaz is going to start on this slide and I'll finish. So we're switching the order just to keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah, that sounds good. And the interconnectivity between these two processes is essential, because a lot of the time companies are getting short pays and they need to go and do further research into them with the deductions process. So when you start off with cash application, invoice matching, deduction coding, then after that deduction's coded, there needs to be research when it comes to getting supporting documentation and the approvals of multiple layers in an organization. So it's really essential to have two solutions that can talk to each other, that are integrated, that can go back and forth as far as, okay, maybe we have questions about a short pay from the deductions team for the Cash App team, being able to communicate effectively between those two teams and being able to resolve it in one system. The interconnectivity is really important. Discounts and deduction identification from remittance, as I said before, being able to get that and understand, hey, is there a short pay here? Okay, what's the next step? Where do we put it in within the process? And do we push it over to the deductions workflow to be approved and to be researched? And then within deductions processing, there's a few items, configurable rules to manage the exceptions, managing withholding tax, one of the many reasons that a deduction can be taken or short pay can be taken. Zero balance payment handling, when there's a payment with a zero balance on it, that's something that can be managed within the deductions workflow. And then underpayment threshold resolution. So if there is an underpayment and you have a threshold to write those payments off, being able to see, okay, maybe that's above that threshold and we do need to resolve that, we do need to research that, or we're saying, hey, it's under this threshold, then maybe we don't need to research that. But also that can change when you're using an automated solution, as far as, hey, maybe we do raise that or lower that threshold so that we can collect more, because we do have the ability to spend less time in researching these deductions, these short pays, these claims, however you want to say it. So all in all, interconnectivity between these two. And I know that, Craig, you're going to get into the impact on Treasury, but it's really important to have visibility and integration between the two systems if you're going to automate.
Yeah, excellent. I like that example, right? The use of automation maybe means you don't you can lower the threshold because the system can find and detect it. I think we all have heard stories where companies are like, hey, underpay everything by $4.98, or whatever the amount happens to be.
Yeah, they know the level. You got the big companies, the big box retailers. It's a specific example where they know exactly what they can get away with. And it's really, for a lot of my clients, it's been tough because they're trying to improve their profit margins, but you can't always think that the customer is sending the accurate information and the accurate payment.
Yeah. So from the movie, one of the Lord of the Rings movie, so I remember the hobbits were talking to the Ents, the tree herders, and they were talking to them about getting involved in it. And it's like, you're part of this world. And that's like Treasury, AR, and AP. They're all part of it. There's an impact. If you don't focus on cash application, there's a very negative impact on Treasury, because now you got to provide more liquidity. And if deductions aren't handled, there's a negative aspect. And so what are some of the interconnectivity is a well-run cash application deduction management process improves liquidity management at a disproportionately strong level. Fixing those issues has a bigger impact on cash than the percentage of deductions that you have, because they tend to be longer running. It's a lever for how much the impact is and how great it is. Good information supports better decision making. We all know that about data and the process, and this overall perspective of optimizing working capital, putting the right amount of capital into AR and AP are vital aspects of running the business, right? You can reduce working capital, that definition of working capital, by just having less receivables or just not offer things on terms. And that's very negative for the organization. So it's optimizing, putting the right capital in the areas lends itself to a better bottom line, not just on the balance sheet side, but on the income statement side. You're increasing and supporting sales effectively. So all of these relate one to another and have a key component. And I think I skipped a slide there by the power of waving my mouse. But that brings us to the key benefits of integration. And I'll give it back over to you, Chaz. Quite a few elements here to talk through.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the Lord of the Rings analogy, because all parts of this puzzle, they all work together. They're all part of the same world. And I think that operational efficiency, that's a really big benefit of integration, and a big benefit of automation. So streamline workflows. You don't have to reduce manual intervention. If you have a workflow, then you don't have to have the emails back and forth. Makes things a lot easier. Efficient cash application improves cash flow, obviously, if you can get the cash and recognize it quicker. Improved accuracy. You're going to minimize errors if you have a technology that's just there to support you. Faster dispute resolution. Being able to identify those deductions and resolve them. And then, I mean, this is a huge one, that the enhanced customer relationships. This is something where a lot of the companies that I work with are saying that automating these processes allows them to spend more time with customers. In a competitive world, doesn't matter what industry that you're in, all industries are very competitive. I mean, there's some that more than others, but if you can improve the customer relationship by implementing technology, that is something where you can increase your profit margins. Your employees are happier, customers are happier. So a really big part of this. It's something that I'm pretty passionate about.
Yeah, excellent. Happier customers are happier, they're better customers, they pay more on time for sure. Excellent. And there we go. And this is our second case study. Can you step us through this one? Little slightly different situation, but still pretty impressive.
Yeah. So this is a food and beverage company industry that gets a lot of claims deductions from the big box retailers. A lot of the time they're trying to use their leverage. And there's a few different areas where they were able to help their processes. Number one, entire order to cash process improved. We talked about how it relates to credit and collections, and that's a really important component of this. As I said before, collaboration with customers enhanced. They're able to understand why the customers are taking deductions in certain areas. Maybe they aren't delivering on time. Maybe they aren't getting it's not the proper product, incorrect amounts. There's a lot of ways that they've leveraged the data in a claims deductions platform to help with that customer communication. And this is a customer service function here in this particular instance. So saved 500 hours of CSR time per year. So if you think of 40 hours a week times 400, I mean, that's a
quarter of a year
of time, right? Yeah. So it's pretty significant, the amount of time that they were able to spend. And that's just on the customer service side. I mean, what about the finance side? I mean, it's really, it's something that is significant and provides a high ROI. 50% of promotional invoices process very quickly. So they're able to see the trends, promotional invoices, the companies are taking claims on that, and they're able to recognize that and have the data to have more visibility into it and understand it better. Very low dispute rate. So again, this is the communication with customers, being able to understand what deductions are accurate or what deductions are are planned and are valid, and which ones aren't.
Yeah, thank you for stepping through that. And so that brings us to selecting a solution. What are some of the things, general principles that are vital in terms of solving the cash application deduction management principle? Why don't you step us through some of those? I'm happy to talk through any that you'd like me to cover as well, but I'm going to kick us off.
No, for sure. I think that understanding, you have to know thyself, right? Know your business and identify your bottlenecks, because sometimes it's something where maybe you just don't have good data, or maybe it's just your process isn't working, or there's different bottlenecks that you can identify to understand if you're selecting a good solution. So understanding your business needs and seeing, are the bottlenecks related to data extraction? Are the bottlenecks related to payment matching? We're getting backed up with unallocated cash because of that. Where are the gaps there? So really doing an understanding before you're looking at a third party for this. Understanding transaction volumes. So know how many, there's a certain volume threshold where you get to, and you're ready to invest in an automation solution. So really know what those numbers are, know what your payment numbers are, know how many claims and how many short pays you're getting per month. That will really help if you start evaluating to understand if the ROI is there, or maybe it's not. Maybe you're not big enough yet where, investing in a solution's worth it. Defining clear objectives. Where do you want to be? What's the current state? What's the desired future state? What's that worth? Reducing unapplied cash, knowing how much you want to reduce that. And obviously streamlining the deductions handling. How do you want to streamline it? This relates to bottlenecks. where are the gaps in the process. Evaluate features and functionalities. So integration capabilities with your ERP system, crucial to understanding and conceptualizing what that means and the timing surrounding it, the IT effort surrounding it, and customizable workflows, analytics, and reporting. Those two are very important because that's a big part of the value of these types of automated solutions as well, is knowing, okay, hey, my business has a certain need in this area for a workflow, and we want to make sure that that works with the solution that we're choosing. Not to say that you want to keep your current process, but understanding if there's a customizable workflow, understanding what can be reported on, and the analytics that can be visible. Those are all really important parts of selecting an automation solution.
Chaz, on the customizable workflows, do you find more value for companies because their company may be unique in totality, or that there may be several lines of business that require a different workflow, division 1 versus division 2?
I think the latter there, that's really important because there's companies that might have different product lines, like you said, that might have different workflows that they want to set up. So I think that's a really good example that you brought up, especially for multi-division, multi-product line companies. Being able to customize those in the way that they see fit is really important.
Okay. All right. It brings us to final thoughts. I think we're going back and forth on this, Chaz. Why don't you start off with the power of AI, and we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, for sure. And I said this a few times, leveraging AI for those manual tasks. We don't want humans doing those. We want humans doing the customer communication and the work that really makes us humans when it comes to that, not just the data entry. When it comes to automated data extraction, invoice matching, and as we talked about before, Craig, the smart suggestions and how that works within a software solution.
Yeah. And for compatibility, I think as you let your eyes wander through the words there, connecting cash applications and deduction management, what does this provide? Well, it's operational efficiency because they're part of the same process. If we isolate things, we can focus on them. But, I think most people are familiar with the quote. And if you talk to me at any point in time, you've probably heard this quote: optimizing part of the process, suboptimizes the whole. And deduction management and cash application are connected. And the ability to integrate helps you optimize that process. And so faster cash application lets you have a better relationship. You get paid faster. It's applied faster. It supports the relationship. And so this idea of compatibility helps with communication, helps with effective communication, and I think everyone can see how important that is.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, next is automation. It simplifies remittance management. Said this probably 10 times today, but the visibility aspect, being able to see where things are in the process, really important. I mean, this is your cash. This is your cash at your organization, and it's extraordinarily important. If you don't know where it is, how can you make decisions? So visibility is huge. And then you look holistically at the credit and collections process and some of these other upstream, downstream processes within order to cash. Being able to automate really helps with those, and it's really connects all of the various departments and the various employees within an organization.
Yeah, automation with a good process and with a good partner. Execution, what are the strategies? This is a repeat of what Chaz just said one slide back. What are your business needs and what are your objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? And hopefully those are linked to the highest value activities. And then as you look at features, functionality, capabilities, as you look at partners, are you partnering with a system or solution that will increase in value over time, that meets the needs and will increase in value over time? Those are crucial for the current set of needs, as well as putting your organization on a very, very good footing. So that's the summary of some of the final thoughts. We do have some more questions we're going to cover before we get to the very last slide. I will, if you can see those in the Q&A box, Chaz, the first
Yeah.
one talks about automation solutions. You want to take the first one? I'll take the second one. Is that good?
Sure, yeah, that sounds good. For companies receiving, is that the one you're looking at? For companies receiving
Yeah.
a significant number of incoming payments in foreign currencies from international customers, are the various automation solutions able to accommodate these payments and reporting formats? And long story short, yes, being able to manage different currencies, being able to manage international customers within a cash application solution. If the automation solution doesn't have that and you're an international company, you should be looking at another one, because that's a super important part of the process, and it helps with the continuity and the aggregation, the combination in everything in one spot when it comes to an international organization.
Yeah. Even if you have, even if you're acquired an international company or a company in another country, they have their own system for billing and receiving and cash application. At some point, you're going to be combining those, and you have to accommodate both jurisdictions. The last question, I'll be really quick. It says, should companies expect to receive the same level of data with international payments to assist with automated cash application? Should they expect? I think that's something that we should be fighting for and pushing for, a little beyond everything we can cover today, but richer formats. We gave the example of CTX, an ACH format in the US that allows additional data. A lot of the newer payment formats and the XML formats allow you to send a lot more information, richer information that can be used for cash application. There should be an expectation, there should be communication on that. There's quite a bit more we could say on that, but time prohibits us from covering all that. So I want to thank Chaz. Thank you so much for talking through this today. Very, very fun. Thank you all for spending some time. And I'll turn it over to Brian. He's got a few crucial things and an asset to look at. So thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Chaz. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. The CTP credits, today's webinar slides, and a recording of today's webinar will be sent to you within 5 business days. And for more on improving cash flow, be sure to download the ebook, Transforming Payments, Improving Cash Flow in AP and AR, by clicking the link in the chat box. Thank you, and we hope you have a good rest of the day.